All right. Well, welcome everybody to What's Cooked with Dr. Cook. So excited for tonight's show because we have a super special guest, Daniel Phillips of Moonjoy Meadery in Lenore, North Carolina. And this is super cool because we have been talking a lot about gut health. We have some articles on the site about fermentation and gut health. And I feel like we just haven't talked about beverages and fermented beverages enough. So, might as well go to the expert. And Daniel Phillips is an expert. In fact, he is the co-owner and the head of mead making for Moonjoy Meadery. So, welcome, Daniel. We're very excited to have you. So I would love, before we really get into talking about mead, if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself and, who are you? Where are you from?
Okay. My name is Daniel Phillips. I grew up in southern Pennsylvania. I joined the Army when I was 21, and after 7 years in the Army, I got out and kind of bounced around all over the United States. So I came back to North Carolina and settled down. We started the meadery process in late 2018, and it took until October 2020 until we had our grand opening. So there's a lot of waiting in there for permits and all kinds of other things, brew time. We'll talk about that later. But right now, we're super happy to be here in Lenore, and we love the people here. It's a super great town, a lot of friendly people. We make an excellent mead, and a lot of people enjoy it.
Well, I know I do. I actually didn't like the taste of mead before I had your mead, and now I like all of your meads. I was talking about that on my last show that I had never, really truly enjoyed mead, but every single one that I have tasted at your meadery has been phenomenal. And that's why I knew I had to get with the expert. And a lot of the times when people think of mead, they think of Vikings. Why is that?
It's recently popularized by the Vikings TV shows and movies and those kind of things, where you see people drinking and talking about mead in those stories. You also have a lot of mention of mead in Norse mythology, so it ties in really closely with that culture. But mead has been around Africa, Asia, and all the continents since before 7000 BC. We have records of mead in China in 7000 BC, and we have all kinds of other archaeological pots, that they DNA tested, and they found fermented DNA, the leftovers of fermentation that happened in these pots, and they theorized, what could have been made in these. A lot of them do contain honey, and to be considered a mead, you have to have the primary fermentable sugar in the beverage be honey. So we use all North Carolina honey here. It's all organic. It comes from way out in the woods where there's no pollution or anything like that. You can see us pouring it on our TikTok videos, Facebook videos, and we buy from local beekeepers because we can go out there, we can visit the hives, we can ensure that they're not using any chemicals, anything bad, that they're not next to like a landfill and their bees are collecting sugar from empty soda cans. And then tie into that, we use all spring water to brew with because that is the mineralized water that allows life to happen.
So with mead, there are three basic kind of components to making it, right? There's water, honey, and yeast, correct?
Yeah, so that's a traditional mead. It's just honey, water, yeast, and they believe, mead can go back upwards of 20, 30,000 years. We're not exactly sure because of shoddy record keeping from that time, obviously. But you have back then you would use animal skins to ferment in. This talks about in all kinds of archaeological texts, and even in the Bible, they talk about fermenting in animal skins. So you would just take water, and if you found honey somewhere, you would pack your animal skins full of that, and it would start to ferment pretty quickly with the heat that's going on, the constant shaking of walking around, and all the yeast that's just naturally present in the air that's on the honeycomb itself.
That's really fascinating. I think about the different types of honey, and I know that honey has a lot of really great healthful properties to it. But there is a diversity in the antioxidant content, um, based on different types of varieties that you'd get. Would you say that the antioxidant properties are definitely higher in the type of honey that you're procuring because of the fact it's not exposed to all those environmental toxins?
That, and we use a richer, darker honey, which means it has more pollen in it than, say, your clover blossom honey is going to be really thin, clear. You can almost see through it. It's so light. It's going to have a very light flavor, floral flavor to it. Like versus the poplar honey I just used a few hours ago was very dark brown with a lot of content in it. It gives it a nice rich flavor. There's a lot more of the local flora and fauna's pollen in there, so it's better for you. You're going to have a resistance to seasonal allergies. We don't heat our mead when we brew it. It's cold brewed, so everything stays below 75 degrees. That way, we maintain the medicinal properties of the honey and ensuring that we're creating a clean beverage for people to enjoy. We don't add sulfites to our mead too, so there's no point in buying all these organic ingredients and local produce and turning it into this great beverage if we're just going to kill everything with preservatives at the end. So it's technically a living product, just in a dormant state when it comes to you.
Sulfites are an interesting thing, and it's really important, I think, to point out the fact that mead, like your mead, is it all mead doesn't have sulfites?
No, just so mead is considered a wine, and in wine production, you use sulfites to protect your wine from oxidizing. So not all meaderies use sulfites. Some do, some don't. We don't. And there's another meadery close by that they do not use sulfites. They cold crash and they use champagne bottles to handle any fermentation that happens while it's bottled. But sulfites are pretty standard across the industry. You'll find them in most wines and other beverages. Will have some kind of preservative in it, unless it's a refrigerated natural beverage.
Gotcha. Sulfite sensitivities are a thing. I've worked
They're
with,
rising.
yeah, well, and they are, and actually, asthma is rising too, and there's a correlation between people who have sulfite sensitivities and asthma. So if you have asthma, you're more likely to have a sulfite sensitivity.
Interesting.
And I actually think it was really interesting because in the 70s and 80s, fruits and vegetables were preserved like crazy with sulfites. And then the FDA had to step in and say, we're banning the use of sulfites for, preservation purposes because all of these, reactions are happening. Um, but I know as like a migraine sufferer myself, like that is one of the things that, I look for when I'm choosing a product, specifically an alcoholic beverage, whether or not it contains sulfites. So it is, really cool to find a beverage that doesn't contain sulfites because I know that's something that's more likely to give me a headache if I consume too much of it.
Definitely the lack of sulfites in our meat, you'll find the next day a lot of people talk about they have no hangover, they feel great. They comparatively to other times they've drank and had a rough next day. We just, so in today's age, there's really no reason to use sulfites anymore. We have filtration processes now and filters that can take all the yeast and bacteria out of a beverage for not very expensive. And so you could have a filtered product that's free of all preservatives.
That's right. We had another doctor like on the show who was showing that there's actually something that you can put on like a wine bottle, and when you're pouring it, it'll take some of those properties out as you're pouring the actual wine. So it's very interesting to see that stuff happen. Um, with the honey, when we're looking at mead, there is this presumed like probiotic content just because of the honey itself.
I can't really speak to the health benefits. You can't make any health benefits with alcohol,
Health
unfortunately.
claims, of
Uh,
course. Yeah.
yes, but I would say our beverage is healthier than maybe some else that you'd find in the out in the store or other wineries that use preservatives or they don't grow organic grapes and they spray them with fungicide and that kind of things. That it all ends up in the product and then it all ends up in you, and then you start experiencing these toxic buildup of things, and you start having side effects like asthma or migraines or whatever because your body's accumulating all these things over time, and it's just building and building.
Yeah, I was reading about these Swedish scientists who were looking at mead. Actually, they were formulating an elixir, and I'm not sure if you've read about this or not. But they were first looking at honey because of the probiotic benefits, specifically lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, and those probiotic bacteria, healthy bacteria that has been associated with reduced inflammation. And what they wanted to do was, take the honey and make it into a mead, a health elixir, and start almost like prescribing it in Sweden as like, hey, this is going to be healthy for anybody who has like, I think it was antibiotic resistant, issues with their
Okay.
bacteria. And I'm not sure how far they've actually gotten with creating the product, but at least they're doing the research right now. Because that's one thing that I did see was lacking was like actual like mead research. However, everything is pointing towards, this fermented beverage has all of the properties just like the other fermented foods and beverages that says, yes, in moderation, has the potential to be
Yes.
a you know, healthful.
Yeah, it's like that. All those articles that came out that said if you have a glass of red wine with dinner, you're going to get these antioxidants. You're going to have better blah blah blah. It's the same thing. A few drinks, one drink, you're good to go. You drink a few bottles, you're in trouble maybe. But so we encourage people to enjoy the beverages. We tell them, like where it came from, the ingredients. Like the peaches in this mead came from 30 minutes from here down the street. We use a lot of local farmers right here in the area. A lot of our fresh fruit meads, all the ingredients came within 30 minutes to an hour of the meadery. And it's all made right here in the back by myself and my help. And we have a lot of fun doing it. It's very creative. Actually, today I had a local farmer bring me fresh strawberries from their farm and elderberry flowers, and I made a mead for them right there on the spot that they're going to enjoy later in August.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you are kind of a wizard when it comes to flavored combinations. At least that's what I call you. So, what have been some of your favorite flavor combinations for mead that you have made?
Um, that's tough. I'd definitely say the blackberry mead that we make is one of my favorites. It's a semi-sweet blackberry. It's just a lot of local blackberries, honey, spring water, a touch of lemon juice, and that's it. It's a pretty simple recipe. It's pretty tasty. Another one would be Finland Bound. That's a muscadine mead. That's all local red muscadines, and we crush those up, and they just float in the mead while it's fermenting. Gives it a nice bright pink flavor or color, and it has a very subtle muscadine flavor. And then I'd say my third one would be this mead that I don't know if you could call it quite organic, but we did gummy bears in it, and I found the cleanest gummy bears I could find on the internet and use those for like gluten free. They're kosher. They check all the box. Uh, for us, as far as ingredients goes, we use a lot of high quality ingredients that certainly cost a lot more, but I think it provides a much better product in the end, quality in, quality out. And this is all stuff that I'm putting in my body all the time. So, again, we want it to be as clean as possible to avoid long-term issues. But it's gummy bears, marshmallow root, ginger root. I think there's some sarsaparilla in there too. It gives it a nice little uh, sugary flavor. It tastes like the gummy bears. We don't select one flavor from the other. We just dump the whole bag in. The last batch I made, I actually put 12 pounds of gummy bears into. It was a lot.
Wow.
It was almost like 5 gallons or something like that, I think. But it was fun. It's a great mead. It has I forgot it has juniper berries in it too, which gives it a nice little tart sweetness too.
Wow, that sounds like a Willy Wonka dream, honestly. So
It,
that's so
it
cool.
it definitely tastes like one. It's all sugar. It's a very sweet mead. Meal to dessert mead.
Somebody's celebrating. um, when you come up with the flavor combinations and you're doing all of this innovation, where are you finding this inspiration? Like, what kind of research do you do to develop these combinations?
For flavor combinations, it's a combination of what I have available right in front of me. I stock up on a lot of different organic juices and spices and herbs. And so if I'm looking to use up some juice, like the other day, I made a tart cherry, ginger, and orange mead just to use up a bunch of tart cherry juice that I had. So it's going to come out real nice. Did a taste test of it yesterday. It's only a week old, but it's actually pretty good, which is pretty amazing for mead. Most meads take a few months to a year before they're fully ready to drink. But we've put a lot of science behind our technique. Like we brew old school, but with some new school techniques mixed in there, so we can speed up the fermentation process. We get a cleaner fermentation, and that allows us to put product out faster.
One thing I also want to mention to anybody who actually hasn't tried mead before, it is gluten free. So, I think that is something that people do look for in a beverage as well. I know with our community, we have a lot of people who suffer from digestive disorders, and looking for gluten-free beverages is something that they do, and mead is gluten-free. So because
Absolutely.
yeah,
Uh, by law, wineries, meaderies are not allowed to have grain in the building. And so we are extra gluten free. There's no grain anywhere in the building, so you don't have to worry about cross contamination or anything like that from other brew projects.
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Um, so, what is one lesson from your job that you think everyone should learn in their life?
Mead is definitely an art in patience. Like I said, I can start a product today and I might not sell it for 8 months from now. And obviously you want to sell it, you want it out the door, but it's not ready. And if you rush it, you'll create a young product that's not ready to drink, and that's going to create a subpar experience for your customers. So patience definitely one, and because everything is months out, I have to do a lot of forethinking and planning ahead. I'm always thinking like 6 months ahead because that's where I am brew wise.
When you first started your journey in life, did you think you would be a mead maker?
No, actually, um, after the army and everything, I tried brewing a little beer. Didn't really stick. I really enjoyed gardening and working with like soil microbiology and things like that, composting. Uh, my mother-in-law wanted to start the meadery. She's the one that taught me to make mead, and this was her idea. I just jumped in and started helping her, and then my wife and I just took over the day to day and let her kind of sit back and collect a well-earned paycheck from all of her years of hard work and experience. And so now we're running the meadery, and everything's going really well. We're really happy with how everything's gone, and we're continually making new meads and new flavors all the time. We've only been open a year and a half, I want to say, and we've easily 50 recipes or more that we've made. Some meaderies only do 10 recipes in 10 years, so there's definitely every mead maker is different. Every meadery is totally different. Uh, I try mead from all kinds of different meaderies to see what it tastes like, and they're all different and unique. And they all use different honeys and yeasts, and those are a big part of the flavor and all those combinations.
Do you think mead is something that people can easily make at home?
Yes, it's really simple. It's just honey and water and a little bit of yeast. So you can easily make mead at home with a little 1 gallon jug on your kitchen counter. It'll be a fun little process. I would caution to leave some headspace in there for foam over and things like that. And it's a fun project. That's how I started, a little 1 gallon.
That's very cool. I think it's really like awesome to just hear how you opened up, you know, during the times of COVID, and you've already made so many different meads. It sounds like you really love what you do, which is refreshing to hear. Where do you see your meadery kind of like going? Like future
Uh,
goals?
so we started in little 6 gallon glass carboys when we started the meadery in 2020. My mother-in-law and I were brewing every day, brewing as fast as we could, as much as we could, and the little equipment that we had, and we've been slowly reinvesting and upgrading. For us, the future holds possibly a bigger location where we could do larger venues like weddings or festivals, things like that. Somewhere out in the country, with a nice spring on it where we can use that nice spring water to continue to make top quality mead. But we love Lenore and we love the people here, so we definitely want to keep a presence here with our tasting room and not leave our roots.
Definitely. Yeah, very cool. And one question that I had when I was thinking about the process of everything, um, do you learn a lot about the bees? Because I always worry about the bees. I worry about the bees getting cold. I worry about the bees getting sick. And your mead is made with so much honey. Do you worry about the bees? I mean,
Um, you do hear articles about, like large die-offs of bees, but they're replenished and the strong survive as they always do in nature. As far as the honeybee is thriving just fine because it has human intervention. Yes, it has mites and other bugs that attack it, or mold, or there's all kinds of things that can go wrong in a hive. They're actually very sensitive. But the native pollinators in our area are the ones that are in trouble. They're the ones that are being outcompeted by the honeybee and other pollinators, and they're just taking everything as fast as possible. So the native pollinators are the ones that are really struggling, not the honeybee.
Huh. That's interesting. Okay. Um, I think I would love for you to tell everybody the story about the cauldrons and the witches' hats.
Okay, so that's a fun beer story, or maybe not so fun if you lived in that time. But so, like, we had a conversation before when you were here last about how brewing was traditionally women's work. It was a household chore that everyone did. Every household maintained some form of alcohol in the house because that's how they purify their water and other products. It was also full of carbohydrates and gluten. There wasn't any sort of filtering, so it probably was pretty gross. But so you would have women who maybe want to make a few extra coins, and they would brew a large cauldron of beer, and then they would walk through the marketplace lugging this cauldron around, and they'd wear tall, pointy hats so people could see where they are. And you'd walk up with your own cup, and she'd fill your cup, and then you'd pay whatever the coin was. And so when the Catholic Church decided that alcohol needed to be regulated by them, they took over uh, all of the brewing aspects and transferred that over to the monasteries and monks. That they made amazing beverages too, but they demonized women brewing and the witch's hat and the cauldron and started accusing them of witchcraft. Basically, during that time, if you accuse anyone of witchcraft, you're pretty much guaranteed to get rid of them. So the competition just gets wiped out of the field thanks to the purge of the church, and then they own alcohol up until 1800, something like that.
Yeah, that's something I never knew before and just found fascinating. Because, I think I've dressed my kids up as witches for several Halloweens and had no idea, the true meaning of it all. But, yeah.
Well, yeah, we all fall prey to the winner's right history. Uh, so we have a lot of people going back now and taking other notes and comparing archaeological digs and all this stuff and trying to like actually find out if the original guy that wrote this was using the right mindset. Did he really do his due diligence? Did he just jump to a conclusion?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody in the audience, if you look at the fortune cookie, there is the URL for the meadery, for Moonjoy Meadery. So please take a click there. And Daniel, how can the audience find you?
They can find us at moonjoymeadery.com. We have our online store there, so we ship to 39 states, including North Carolina that we're in. There's an option for if you live in North Carolina or outside North Carolina on the website that you can click on. You can find, I think we have 11 flavors online right now. There'll be more added next month. We've bottled some new meads recently, and I'm excited to get those out to people. And we have other meads that have been aging for a while, and those will come out in July.
So if I get a bottle of mead, and this is something I've been genuinely meaning to ask you, and I open it and I put it in my refrigerator, how long can it stay in there?
I would say up to a week at most.
Okay.
Because it is, again, a living product, there's some buffers there that you wouldn't have in a mead that's been, say, used sulfites in. So a mead, like a wine or a mead that has sulfites in it, is probably only good for 3 days after you open it. We've had customers talk about drinking our mead up to a month even after they open it. I wouldn't suggest that, but they say it still tastes the same. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I would give it a solid week at most.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any mead tips?
Like mead making tips or mead drinking tips?
Both. Well, I will say that one mead drinking tip that I have learned is always go one for one. So if you're drinking a horn of mead, drink a horn of water after your horn of mead and repeat as
Yeah, that's
necessary.
definitely a great trick. I picked up in Italy. It's a great way to maintain if you're drinking over an extended period of time. You can enjoy your beverages, but not, get really hungover the next day and not get really trashed that night if you're spacing it out with some water. As far as like me drinking goes, so I would use a drinking horn or your standard wine glass, and it starts with the smell. So take some sniffs, see how you like it. Swirl it around and get a little oxygen in there. You could even say if it's too sweet, you can drop an ice cube in there, and that'll help uh, mute that sweetness a little bit. We have some meads with spices in them that are very good heated up during the winter. They're amazing. They get you all nice and warm, feeling on the inside, and just take the chill off really nicely. As far as tips for mead making, I would say the sky's the limit. Just use your imagination. Watch TV shows if you like baking competitions. Cooking shows. You could go just walk around a grocery store and look at things. Meat combinations come to me most of the time when I'm standing in front of my cabinet of juices and spices and things like that. And I'm just kind of, what goes good? What do I need to use? But meat's so great because honey's a blank palette. It pairs really well with everything. So honey can go with just about any kind of flavor you can imagine, and the honey itself can be a large part of that too. Uh, Avocado blossom honey is a really rich flavor. You can get mesquite honey. You can get meadow foam honey from Washington State that's supposed to taste like marshmallows. You
Oh,
can
wow.
get orange blossom honey from Florida, clover honey from South Carolina, Georgia, peach blossom honey, blueberry blossom honey. Um, those kind of honeys are just claiming that the predominant pollen in those honeys is from that particular flower, fruit flower. We use a lot of sourwood honey, which is here in North Carolina in the mountains. It's a really nice gold, light gold honey that has a little sour tang to it, which is really nice combined with fruits. It gives it a little bit of that sourness. So you get the fruit and the sour, and the honey comes in with the sweet. So you have all these different flavors playing together that make a really nice combination. We just bottled a blueberry mead on Monday that was just blueberry, spring water, and honey. It's a super simple recipe, but it tastes pretty good, and it's going to be nice once it ages out a little bit.
Awesome. I think you had mentioned to me before that the Flavor Bible is also a good book for people looking
Yeah,
for flavor combinations.
I just recently found out about it a few months ago. Another meat maker suggested it to me, and I bought it on his recommendation because I've tried his meats, and all of his meats were really good. And it's an amazing book for flavor combinations. It tells you what pairs well, and it gives you ratings on pairing too. Like this pairs really well, and this is okay, and this is like medium pairing or whatever. And it's a really great reference because you can just get lost in Google or web forums with home brewers, and everyone's got their own opinion. But this is a cookbook. It's not really for beverages, but flavor is flavor, and if it pairs, it pairs. And I'll just roll with it. I've had some meats that didn't turn out, quite like I wanted them to, and but they still sold, and I just didn't make it again. And there's always something new to try. There's literally thousands and thousands of combinations of flavors that I could do with just spring water and honey, um, and let alone all the other fruits and spices and herbs that are out there available.
Yeah, I think you had one with jalapeno once. Is that correct?
I have a pineapple mango habanero mead
Ah,
is aging right now. I hope to tone down some of that spice with some aging. It's a little hotter than I prefer, but it'll make the spice lovers will really enjoy it if they like that heat bite, and it will also make a great marinade for people that want to cook with it.
okay, so you can cook with it.
Yeah, it's a wine. You can cook with it. You can
I didn't even
marinate.
think about that. Yeah, that would be so
You can
delicious.
marinate your food, marinate yourself with it.
I love that. Well, very cool. Well, I would definitely like to invite anybody in the audience if you have any questions for Daniel. You have the opportunity to ask a mead maker question. So that's super cool. Oh, looks like we have somebody. Fire away.
All right, I had a simple question based on something you said earlier. You spoke about the honeybees and the issue of colony collapse disorder, but you aren't really worried about the honeybees. You mentioned that they were essentially displacing the native pollinators, which I didn't realize that are honeybees a non-native species to this area, and who are the native pollinators that they're displacing? That was something that was totally new information for me.
Okay, so native pollinators in the area, there's all kinds of ground dwelling bees. There's hundreds of thousands of species of bee all over the place. You know, we're really just familiar with the honeybee and like bumblebees. Those are our photogenic bees that we see and interact with all the time. But there's so many different bees out there, and even mosquitoes are a pollinator. There's flies that pollinate. There's all kinds of other insects that use pollen in some form or fashion during their either transferring from one stage of life to the other, or they use it as food. Uh, so there's tons of insects out there that depend on pollen, and honeybees were bred by people to be as efficient as possible. Go out there and collect as much pollen as they can, and then bring it back and convert that all into honey. So they've been selected over time and bred selectively to be these like super bees that just work all the time and collect honey all the time. If you go out, native hives don't really collect much honey. It's not like the key component to their survival. They haven't been bred that way or evolved that way. They just take what they need. Honeybees, collect far more than what they would need to survive the winter, which is why we're able to pull supers off the hive, and collect hundreds of pounds of honey off of one hive and still leave them a whole another frame full of honey to survive the winter. They're so that it's I don't know if we're like approaching, ecological collapse or anything like that as far as the competition for pollen. And people can mitigate this by planting local flowers and plants that produce pollen that's local to that area. You can't just go out throwing random flowers out there because those bees aren't going to visit them. They only want, the flower that's local to that area.
It's really good to know. Very cool. Well, if anyone else would like to ask Daniel a question, do you have a favorite Norse god?
Um, so in Norse mythology, it's an interesting story of how mead came about. So there was a god that was created by all the other gods, and no, I'm not going to pronounce his name right, but he was a really wise guy, and he went around the world traveling, and he collected all his knowledge. And so he was lured into this home by two dwarves. And they killed him and drained his blood into a magic cauldron to make the first batch of mead. And the first batch of mead was reported to have super qualities to make you a gifted poet, gifted speaker. It was called, the drink of the gods because only they can have it. And so then, they transfer that over into a mountain hold. Uh, I'm butchering the story, but this whole time, the Norse god Odin is watching these two little guys run around, and they're killing other people too, and creating all kinds of chaos in the realm. And he sees an opportunity, and he sneaks down into this mountain and seduces the woman that's guarding it, and then flies off with Mead after he seduced her, and she dropped her guard. And as he's flying from that realm to uh, the Azir's realm, some mead drops out of his mouth. He was flying in the form of a bird, and it drops out of his mouth and it fell to earth, where we have a not so potent version of the mead that the gods enjoy.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Well, thank you for that story. Wow. This has been super cool. I have learned so much. And for everybody who is joining us now and for everybody who watches the replay, please check out Moonjoy Meadery at moonjoymeadery.com. Very cool stuff. And, I appreciate you checking in and being with us. I would love to come out and do more and, maybe do some cooking with the mead because this is blowing my mind. I'm already thinking of things that we should be doing with the mead and, oh my gosh, it's really getting innovated in my head.
Yeah, you can cook with it, you can marinate with it, you can make a reduction out of it and like drizzle that over. We had one customer make a reduction out of our blackberry mead and drizzle that over cupcakes that she made. It was really good. Again, it's the possibilities with mead are endless. You can do pretty much whatever you can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about some sauces for sure. I'm gonna definitely get with our chef and start thinking about this and get with you on some stuff too, because for sure, very cool stuff. And well, if nobody else has any questions, we'll wrap it up. And again, appreciate you so much for coming to the show with us. And everybody, check out foodguides.com and follow us on our social at foodguideshelp, and check out Daniel at moonjoymeadery.com. He also has a TikTok. So Moonjoy Meadery has a TikTok, so check them out on TikTok.
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, website.
Yes.
We're all over the place.
If you want to see the strawberries and the elderberry, that is on the TikTok today, and the strawberries look incredible. So
they are amazing.
Yeah, I know, scrumptious. So, well, thanks again. Thanks everybody for joining us.